Hello and welcome back to the channel. As always, I'm your host, Morgan. Before we dive into the topic today, I just want to get a little bit of housekeeping stuff out of the way. If you're not interested in this, my lovely partner will edit in a timestamp about nowish so that you can skip to the main introduction of the topic and the topic today. So before we dive into everything, we're going to address my kind of hit or miss upload schedule of the last few months. Well, I've been finishing up an honors program research project, which as of right now, while I'm filming, it is technically complete. I just have a couple loose ends to tie up there with my faculty mentor. So that's been taking a lot of my energy. This project has been hanging over my head for a few years now at this point. I've also had some issues with my own mental health, which I know is a big deal for a lot of people, especially with the pandemic still going on. I'm okay. I'm dealing with things, and that's all that I really feel comfortable saying on YouTube. And moving forward, we are hoping to maintain regular videos on Sundays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, just like we have been doing, and hopefully more occasional, like chat and other style videos on Mondays and Thursdays as well. And the website, which has been kind of sitting dormant for a year at this point, is going to be active again. I had to take a step back to focus on my honors project, but it's probably mostly just going to be blog posts for a little bit until my degree is complete, which will happen in June-ish. But the website itself is at least going to be active again, so follow me on my social medias and everything that's linked down below if you're interested in knowing when I post on the website. So without further ado, let's get into the matter at hand today. So last week I was scrolling through my subscriptions tab on YouTube, as one does, and I noticed a video by Kyle Hates Hiking about an article published by Backpacker entitled, "Could Thru-hiking Be Bad for Your Health? A New Study Makes a Troubling Find." And no, I'm not responding to Kyle's video. I'm just mentioning it because this is what brought this particular topic into my head. I actually think Kyle did a very good job talking about this topic from a non-sciencey background, and I do enjoy his videos a lot. I like the more dark humor that I see in his videos than other outdoor YouTubers, but that's neither here nor there right now. So even though I'm a bit late to this party on this article in the outdoor world, I still love hiking, and I have a biology background. So I want to talk about this, give my own thoughts, and give a bit more of a sciencey perspective on it than Kyle was able to do, even though, again, he did a great job talking about it even without a sciencey background. So let's get into this. So a couple of things before I actually dive into this is that Backpacker is not a science reporting site, but in my opinion, they actually did better reporting on this particular study than some large media sites on other studies that have been released. However, this article is still a bit sensationalized. They didn't directly link the case study. They did link the journal it's from, which is Physiological Reports, and that is an open access journal. I have linked the actual study down below, so you can take a look at it if you are interested. They did say that the study was published in January, but it was accepted in January and actually published in the March issue, which isn't a big deal. Any media site that's not used to looking at sciencey journals is probably going to make that mistake. It just made the study itself a bit tough for me to find. But again, I linked it down below so that you guys don't have to do the awkward searching through the journal like I did. And this particular study is a case study with a sample size that is very, very small. The sample size is actually only one person. There's no control, and this is more of like an exploratory study. And please, when we get into this, don't let the results of this one case study sway you away from thru hiking. And the other elephant in the room is that I have never actually thru hiked. I'm not really a long distance hiker, so take anything that I say with a grain of salt. I grew up hiking and camping. I do a lot of hiking and camping, but I'm not a thru hiker or a long distance hiker. I would like to be, but my life just hasn't made that possible as I've been finishing school and stuff. So let's actually get into the study itself now that I've been rambling for about 6-ish minutes at this point. So to summarize the study a bit, we need to begin with a little bit of background. So this guy, Tom Heinbockel, had finished his master's in integrative physiology at the University of Colorado. So he has a background in physiology, all that jazz. And this study is very much a physiology study. So he teamed up with assistant professor Daniel Craighead, and the whole goal here was to document how Tom Heinbockel's thru hike of the Pacific Crest Trail, or the PCT, would impact his health. For anyone who doesn't know what the PCT is, because you're not in the outdoor world, or you only really know my channel from my Bio for Beginners videos or Serpent Sundays or something of that nature, the PCT is a long distance hiking trail that runs from Mexico to Canada and crosses through the states of California, Oregon, and Washington. It's about 2,650 miles in length, give or take, and it also depends on fire closures and all that jazz. And it crosses over mountain ranges like the Sierra Nevadas and crosses through deserts like the Mojave Desert. So that's our background for this. Tom Heinbockel finished his master's, teamed up with Daniel Craighead, an assistant professor at the University of Colorado, and Tom Heinbockel wanted to scientifically document how thru hiking the PCT would impact his health. So before the trail, they evaluated Heinbockel's condition in the lab. Now, this was done 8 days prior to starting the hike, and he was found to be physically fit and healthy. Now, once they got on the trail, it's important to note that he had to carry all of his essentials in his pack, and not really going to go into that. That's more covered by thru hikers, but basically in the pack, you have your shelter, food, sleeping system, everything you need. So in his pack, he had everything that would keep him alive on trail. And then on trail itself, they characterized him as eating a poor diet. So it was basically low weight, high calorie foods that if you look at them, you'll probably recognize them as junk food. And these foods are pretty common in the hiking world, especially the thru hiking world, when you want the biggest calorie bang for your weight buck for the most part. So it's things like jerky, chips, pastries, etc. And then in town, he was eating things like burgers, pizza, fried foods. All of that lovely stuff that we all know is not too great for you, or at least that's what our doctors and our parents tell us. And so as we can see in these tables, he was averaging about 27 miles a day when he was walking. Please note that I have converted that for you because the table itself is in kilometers, not miles. The tables are in the metric system. And if you are like me from America, you're probably not used to seeing the metric system, but in the science world, the metric system is what we use because it makes more sense. And it's factors of 10 people learn the metric system. So anyway, in addition to hiking his 27-ish miles a day, he did an average of 151 push-ups a day as well. And it's cited that he did this to try to maintain some sort of upper body strength as well. And push-ups is not the norm for most thru hikers. Generally, I've seen you're too tired at the end of the day anyway to do stuff like that. So he's kind of going above and beyond already at that point. And so on trail, how they actually gathered these measurements was he used a Garmin Fenix 5X multi-sport GPS watch, the Gut Hook iPhone app, and it's important to note that these are not sophisticated scientific tools, but they're still pretty good. The Gut Hooks app is what kind of mapped his elevation and stuff that you can see in the table and all that fun stuff. And then the GPS watch helped map his GPS and is what was helping to measure his heart rate and stuff while he was hiking. So overall, he completed the trail in about 112 days, and that is, according to the article in Backpacker specifically, is about a month faster than the average for most PCT thru hikers. So that's pretty good. One thing that I found interesting looking at the data, you can actually see where he took 0 days or days where he wasn't hiking, because there's no data for those days. And I just found that interesting because I like looking at data, but that was a fun thing in the study that I saw. So moving on to post-trail. So post-trail, Heimbach went back to the lab and had his condition evaluated again. And they did this about 7 days post-trail. So they tried to make sure the measurements were taken about the same distance before and after trail to kind of control for some variability in those factors. And they also made sure he had abstained from like caffeine and things like that prior to his measurements being taken. And that just kind of helped regulate to make sure there wasn't anything that could be increasing heart rate artificially or something in the lab when they were measuring all the vitals. So what exactly were the results? So with the results that we're going to be looking at specifically and that they did look at, there's weight, the BMI, and body fat percentage that were the main things that were the first ones they looked at because they're the most apparent. That's what you're going to see when you look at someone. That's where the change is going to be. And there was no significant change, and you can see that in the tables as well where they recorded everything in the study. And that's very interesting because many hikers actually report major changes in like their weight or their body fat percentage and all that lovely things. However, they did notice a decrease in endothelial function post-trail. But Morgan, what does that mean? Well, I'm about to tell you guys, because remember, I have a sciencey background, so I did some more searching to make sure I can tell you what that means, because my background is biology, but not exactly physio. So let's talk about what a decrease in endothelial function means. So the vascular endothelium is basically a thin layer of cells that lines your vascular system. So heart, arteries, blood vessels, all those fun things that keeps the blood, that moves the oxygen and the nutrients and the waste all over your body working properly. And this layer helps to regulate that. So a decrease in function basically can put one at an increased risk of cardiovascular disease, which is basically saying that a decrease in endothelium function, it means you have an increase in your chances for a heart attack or a stroke. So that's not lovely. And the other kind of alarming thing that they noted was there was also an increase in aortic stiffness. So that just means it's basically how stiff your large arteries are. And usually any normal human being, the aortic stiffness is going to increase with age, and like a decrease in the endothelium function, an increase in aortic stiffness can also contribute to your risk of cardiovascular disease as well as other ailments. It'll contribute to an increase in your resting heart rate, which they did see a slight increase in Heimbach's. And this, your aortic stiffness, can actually be kind of I want to say controlled for lack of a better term, by how active you are. So the aortic stiffness itself can be decreased with endurance training. So overall, remember how I mentioned that they did see an increase in resting heart rate? Well, that increase was about 8 beats per minute, and that doesn't necessarily put him into a danger zone, but it is significant enough to note. So the paper itself did note that they did have a very small sample size and there were a lot of limitations, like you can't really control a bunch of stuff, you don't have multiple groups, and again, this is data from one person, so any anomalies are going to be greatly increased and everybody is different. So the overall conclusion that they came to here was that the decrease in endothelial function and the increase in aortic stiffness usually occur with aging and poor diet. And basically, because of the poor diet in this case, that's likely what caused those particular results. So they saw what they kind of characterized as decades of aging occurring in just 112 days. So the big takeaway from this study is that exercise alone cannot entirely combat poor diet. So at its core, the study's not really about is doing the trail good or bad for you. It's about a very active period of time while eating a very poor diet. Will the activity and exercise negate the negative effects of the poor diet? The answer is no. Exercise alone is not going to entirely mean you can eat whatever the heck you want with no negative consequences. So, what are my thoughts here? Well, basically, despite the small sample size and the whole exploratory nature of the study, I found the results fascinating. But again, that's kind of because I'm a nerd. I like reading data, and that makes my little nerdy heart happy. But reading the study, it does look like it kind of assumes that all or most thru hikers only eat junk food even when they're in town. Obviously, I can't talk for a community I'm not technically a part of, but from what I've seen from hikers that do vlog their thru hikes, like Dixie from Homemade Wanderlust and Starburst from the Whimsical Woman, they both said that they craved healthy food when they were in town and ate healthy food when they can get it. And hikers like Darwin from Darwin on the Trail tend to be more of the healthy food enthusiasts in general and try to shy away from only eating a bunch of crap, because your body will tell you when it needs more nutritious stuff. And again, the study only details one hiker and his specific experience. I'm sure that it's probably pretty prevalent that people eat a bunch of junk food constantly because your body's craving calories when you're working that hard. But I think that the assumption that hikers don't try to get the healthy stuff when they can is not necessarily the best assumption they have, but they're working with a sample size of one. They're doing a very specific case study. They're going with exactly what they had. So that's a little asterisk I think should be included. Now, the question that the article begs, will this information kill the thru hiking world? No. Because anyone that's going to go out on a hike like that knows that they're more likely than not eating a fairly crap diet, and you're probably going to be eating what you can get in some cases. So, no. It's not going to kill the thru hiking world. And I think the big idea of this article is more, does strenuous exercise negate a very poor diet? It's not necessarily, is thru hiking bad for you? It's just the strenuous exercise in this case happened to be a thru hike of the Pacific Crest Trail and not just running mindlessly on a treadmill for 12 hours a day for 112 days. So, will this article potentially scare some people away, though, because of how it's written? Almost definitely. And that's just kind of something that happens with non-science communication sources talking about science. It's hard to get the general public to read things about science, which is why it gets sensationalized. And that is a problem, that the general public sees science and studies and things as boring. But it's an unfortunate problem. I don't necessarily have the answers to change. But if again, this is not the worst science reporting I've ever seen, though. So good job, Backpacker. I've seen much worse from other sources. I do like that you linked to the professor. I do like that you linked to the journal. I wish you'd actually cited the study itself, but at least you linked to the journal, and even if the month of publication was wrong, you tried. So you get a little gold star anyway. And so to kind of wrap things up, I'm just kind of gonna echo what Kyle said in his own video, and I'll link his video down below because he probably has better takes on the actual backpacking side of it than I do, because he's actually backpacked. And he did a good job. Like, what he ultimately said is kind of my thoughts. So try to eat healthy in town. Really think about what you're putting into your body. And sometimes you'll be at the mercy of what's available, and sometimes the only thing that's going to be available is going to be junk food. But overall, just put your thought into it and think about the food you put into your body, and that's the same thing that you should be doing every day anyway. So I think the study has more to do with the question, does vigorous exercise cancel out poor diet, than it does with the question, is through hiking bad for you? I think that it's just interesting that the vigorous exercise was a through hike instead of an artificial gym setting. And that's why it's being associated with the question, is through hiking bad for you? But I digress. I think the study itself is fascinating. Again, I have everything linked down below, from the article from Backpacker, from the study itself, to Kyle's video, and to the couple of other resources I had to use to talk about the endothelial function and the aortic stiffening, if you are interested in going and reading those yourself as well. So what are your thoughts? Did you read this article? Are you going to go look at the study and geek out over data too? If you're not, I understand entirely, but leave me a comment with your thoughts down below. Is this study going to kill the thru hiking world by making it seem like thru hiking's bad for you? What are your thoughts on that? You already know my answers now. But I will see you all in the next one. Thank you again for watching this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and ring that bell if you would like to see more. And if you'd like to follow me on any of my other social medias, the links are down in the description below. Don't forget to check out thereptilegoth.com for all of my articles and blog posts. If you found any value in this video and you would like to help support the channel, please check out my Patreon page. That link is also in the description down below. And a special thanks goes out to my Diamond Dragon patron, Diane B. What you're doing is really helping me fund a dream here. I will see you guys all in the next one.